to Totalis Rankium. This week,
Round 5, Tempo Completo.
Hello, and welcome to Roman Emperors Totalis Rankium. I am Jamie.
And I am Rob, ranking all of the Roman emperors, what we have done. And this is Round 5, Tempo Completo.
How long they last? How long they last, Rob?
How long did they last? Oh, over 1,000 years. That's how long they lasted. A long time. Not individually. Much. It was a group effort. That's what it was. Yeah, Round 5, we've had 4 rounds. We have had 8 emperors go through so far.
Yeah.
Only 4 more emperors can go through, so it's hotting up. But before we go into our emperors this time, obviously it's Tempo Completo time, and as ever, it's the dynasties first. Let's do a quick overview of the dynasties. Any predictions on which group lasted the longest?
Well, so far, every prediction I've made has been wildly out, or at least not quite right. So, no, I have no idea.
Fair enough. I mean, I
hope that helps. Let's keep the entertainment going. Woo!
It's honest, and I value that in you, Jamie. That's what you bring to the table. Honesty.
And nothing else.
You bring other stuff. It's just the honesty right now is the most obvious. Okay, here we are. Leonid. No, the Leonid dynasty. On average, they scored 1.96. So, there you go. Just to give you a sense, that is, on average, 15 years apiece. Not bad. Yeah, 15 years. Right. Yeah. The Justinians, 1.92, almost identical, so around 15 years each. The Heraclians, 1.91, so also around 15 years each. It was at this point I thought, oh, well, maybe that's just it. Maybe everyone rules on average 15 years. But then, obviously, we hit the 20-year anarchy, and it drops. Oh, it drops to 0.4. Wow. That was their average score. On average, they ruled for 3.2 years each. Yeah,
3.2 years. Wow.
Well, you got 5 emperors in 20 years. It's obviously not going to go well, is it? So there you go. The Isaurians then go back into form. They're 1.78, so about 14 years. The Nikepheros, 0.42.
Oh, bless.
It's tricky when you've got your head hanging off to survive for very long.
Yeah, true.
But then we're back up there. The Amorians get 1.63. The Macedonians, all 20 of them, on average, 1.38, which is an average of 11 years.
Yeah, I've gone back up a bit. That's good.
Yeah, it's gone back up a bit. But then it falls apart. The Ducas, 0.55, so we're talking about 4 years each. And then the Komnenos. They keep coming up, and on average, 2.6 they scored. That is an average of 20 years each.
That's pretty good.
And considering one of them was a boy emperor who lasted no time at all, and one of them was Andronicus, who only ruled a couple of years, and they still get an average of 20, that is incredibly impressive. If you remember, the 3 of them that won Caesar lasted 100 years between the 3 of them.
Wow.
Yeah, that was impressive.
Over almost 30 years each. 30 years each.
Exactly. So, impressive stuff. And then we go from the Komnenos to the Angelos, and as ever, there is an obvious difference here. 0.47 for the Angelos dynasty, so we're talking about 3.5 years each there. The exiled ones, back up to 1.76 they scored, so around 14 years. And then the Paleologos, the last dynasty, things are falling apart. But actually, not bad, 2.2, an average of 18 years each.
No, not bad.
So, our third longest lasting dynasty was actually the very first one, the Leonid dynasty, with roughly 15 years each. Second place goes to the Paleologos with 18, and the Komnenos, yet again impressing, with 20 years.
Cool.
So, there we go. That's the dynasties. But what about the individuals? And this is really easy. We don't really have to discuss this much at all. This is a number-crunching exercise, this one. At the bottom, who did not rule for very long? Well, in 5th place was Constantine 3B.
Oh, yeah, I remember the 3B.
Yeah, 3B, son of Heraclius. He only ruled for 3 months. He was ill when he came into power, and he died 3 months afterwards. So there we go. 4th place, Staurakius. Poor Staurakius.
Yeah.
Came into power with his head half chopped off. 2 months, 4 days. So, not great.
Too soon.
Yeah. Then third place, Zoe II. Obviously, in the background forever with her sister Theodora. So she was doing lots of stuff, but ruling in her own right. She only ruled for 2 months.
Loser.
Second place. Sorry, I haven't written his name down, bizarrely, but I had written a small description of why he didn't last long, so I've remembered who it is. So second place, Stephen. Cooed his own father. Everyone hated it. Got cooed himself a month later. So
1 month.
Yeah, not good. But first place. Oh, it's got to be first place. Nicholas. Poor Nicholas. The only emperor in Season 1 and Season 2 to score 0 in Tempo Completo. He was proclaimed emperor by the church, crowned in the Hagia Sophia, so he counts.
He was emperor, yeah.
He hid in the Hagia Sophia and was deposed a few days later. One source claims that this was 6 days. So if you put 6 days for our number cruncher...
You can't crunch it.
Well, it just averages out. It rounds to 0.0. So there you go. He scored nothing.
Brilliant.
So that's our bottom. What about our top? Well, 6th and 5th place was actually very, very close. Alexios I, the start of the Comneni dynasty, and his grandson, Manuel I, both scored 4.63. So they come in joint 5th. But if you actually look into the days, Alexios was emperor for 37 years and 4 months.
Wow.
Very impressive. And Manuel, 37 years and 5 months. 1 month better.
Pip to the post.
Pip to the post. Then, in 4th place, Justinian I with 38 years, 7 months. Very impressive. Then we get Andronicus II with 45 years, 5 months. Lasted a very long time, did he? Over a third of his points came from this. Andronicus II didn't score much for anything else and didn't get Gene Caesar, but he lasted a long time.
Yeah.
Second, another non-Gene Caesar winner. This is Constantine VII. He lasted 46 years and 5 months.
That's insane. It broke the scale.
It did break the scale. He goes above the Augustus scale. A lot of this was him being a puppet, and then he got soft-cooed a bit, and he was in the background. And he didn't have much going for him, bless him. So we gave him the full time he was puppet emperor and emperor, just so he had something to boast about in the afterlife. So here it is. This is his chance to shine. He comes in second. Well done.
Nice.
But obviously first place, there's no beating him. With 49 years, 11 months, so let's just call it 50 years, it's Basil II, with a score of 6.5. I mean, this is one of the reasons that puts him so far ahead in the field when we're just looking at the scores. This Tempo Completo score just inches him out ahead. So there you go. It certainly helps with his winning Season 2 in terms of points. It also means he is our top scorer for Tempo Completo. So well done, Basil II. You are the best. Nicholas, you are the worst.
Nah.
Incidentally, that is also true for total points, but we're going to talk about that next week. But yeah, interestingly, Tempo Completo, it mirrors it this time. So there we go. That's Tempo Completo. Nice and simple. But we know why we're all here, Jamie.
Yeah, we do.
We do. We need to look at these 5 emperors, and we need to decide. We need to separate, as I said last time, the wheat from the chaff. Which one of our listeners apparently misheard as separating the wheat from the Jeff, which I quite like.
I like that.
Yeah, so we are separating the wheat from the Jeff.
Farmer Jeff.
So let's see who we've got, shall we?
Yeah.
Round 5, fight!
Well, here we go. Round 5. Let's go through the scores, see if you can predict who goes through. First up, we've got Theophilos from the Armenian/Amorian dynasty. Theophilos scored a reasonable score of 36.63 and he ranked 15th, so not bad.
Not bad at all.
He is up against Alexios IV. Alexios IV from the awful Angelos dynasty, and Alexios IV got it for being awful. He scored a bad score of 15.06. He came 57th overall. Yeah, he got it for being awful. Is he bad enough, though, to get through to the semi-finals? After this, we have Irene. Irene scored a reasonable 28.13. It's not great, though, is it? It puts her middle of the pack. It's 37th overall. Then we've got the founder of the Heraclius dynasty, Heraclius himself. He scored 53.88. A mighty score that puts him second place overall.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we've got Nikepheros II from the Macedonian dynasty. a reasonable 32.50, and he's in 25th place overall.
Well, I've got my prediction, but, you know.
Well, you never know. I mean, let's be
You never
honest. Heraclius is going to go through. It's fairly obvious. You'd be a fool to bet against it. But out of the other four, I mean, Heraclius is just sitting there looking pleased with himself in this round, isn't he?
I mean, he's the kind of one that even wouldn't turn up to chariot race. He's like, I don't need to.
No.
It's fine.
It's in the bag. It is. But what about second place, though?
Well, is it going to be like last week? You know, it might be between Theophilos and
Nikepheros too.
Nikepheros.
I mean, you've got to think it's probably between Theophilos and Nikepheros too, but maybe when I go into the details of the stories, maybe some things will come to you. Let's find out, shall we? And we're going to start, obviously, with the first name pulled, which was Theophilos. Theophilos, the lover of Theos. 829 to 842. The only member of the Amorian dynasty to get it, if we don't count Leo V the Armenian in the same dynasty, which we do, but yeah, you know what I mean. We have different dates to his birth, but we chose the older one because it made more sense with the story. And he was born around the same time as the rebellion with the cave up the pole. You remember that?
Vaguely.
Yeah, there was a cave up a pole in a desert, and they went and talked to someone who could predict the future. Yeah. It's a story that we both thoroughly enjoyed at the time. Anyway, that happened, and at roughly the same time, Theophilos was born. His godfather was Leo V. Leo V we're going to cover in round 6. So let's not talk about him just now. Leo V and Theophilus' dad took the throne and made Leo V the emperor. And little Theo was then given John the Grammarian as his teacher.
That's a great title.
It is such a great name. Theophilus takes to the books. He loves his learning. When he was 15, his father, however, was accused of treason by his godfather, Leo V. Leo V, do you remember Leo V's death?
No.
You do. You just don't know which one it is.
No.
It's our favourite death of all time, Jamie.
The toilet one. The boar.
No, it's not that one. That was a good one.
In the church. With
in
the
the church,
cross.
Yes. Okay, right. just to make sure you know who we're talking about here. So, Leo V, obviously he's not been killed yet, accuses Theophilus' father of treason, so throws dad in jail. However, for reasons we'll cover next round, Theophilus' father, Michael, was able to arrange the assassination of Leo from the cells. And this is where we get the church death, and it's absolutely amazing. Yeah. But more on that next time. Anyway, Michael becomes Michael II, and Theophilus becomes the heir. A civil war then happens between his father and Thomas. And we get no details of what Theophilus was doing during this civil war, so we'll gloss over it now. But then his father dies, and Theophilus becomes the emperor. Theo gets all his powerful advisors together and announces that he wanted to praise all those who had helped save his father and kill his godfather. In fact, I'll quote here. So let each one of those men step forward from the crowd and show himself to us plainly, so that knowing which ones you are as friends, we may reward you as you deserve.
Is this the bit where he then kills them because you can't trust them?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Yeah. People go, yes, I helped kill your godfather. Of course I saved your father. I deserve a reward. What? Why the swords? In fact, I
don't need a sword. I've already got 20. Oh.
Well, Theophilus then turned to the head of the guards who was standing in the corner, and this is actually a quote. This wasn't something that we just said. He just turned to a guard in the corner and said, "Go for it."
Brilliant.
Or "go to it," depending on how you translate it. But essentially,
go for it.
Yeah. And these people are just hacked to pieces. So there we go.
Do you think there's like a really nervous, he wasn't sure to put his hand up or not, and just half raised, then very quickly put it down.
Yes.
No.
That was scratching my head. I was scratching my head.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just stretching. Oh, yeah.
Well, there is some speculation because of all this that Theophilus is not actually his father Michael's son, but Leo V's son. And the Amorian dynasty should actually be the Armenian dynasty, which is why I lump Leo in. Yeah. We have no idea, though, obviously. Maybe he just preferred his godfather to his father. Impressed the caliphate with all his gold and stuff. There was an amazing story about golden goblets. We really enjoyed it, but it's not Theophilos, so I'm not going to go into it again. But remember, this is Baghdad in the middle of the Golden Age with its circular city and the House of Learning. And Al-Rashid had just recently died, but he was seen as like the most perfect ruler of an empire ever. And Theophilos really liked what he'd heard about Al-Rashid and wanted to emulate his style of rule.
What style of rule would that be?
Enlightened.
Oh, like books and stuff.
Books and actually caring about the people you're ruling and trying to improve the empire, not just expand the borders, but make life better for everyone within it, that kind of thing. Anyway, the reason why I'm mentioning the fact that John the Grammarian goes over to Baghdad is, yes, he's trying to impress the Caliphate, but he's also trying to get one of their generals back, and this was a general called Manuel. This was the first Manuel we came across. This is the first guy we started doing the accent for, before we had Emperor Manuels.
You mean replicating his accent?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
So, tried to get Manuel back into the Emperor. He made some inroads, but it didn't quite work. Meanwhile, Theophilos was choosing himself a wife, and possibly one of those bride shows were happening, where all the women had to line up. Remember, we had a period where that was sort of happening, but as covered, it's not really clear whether this is actually accurate to what happened or whether it was just a trope that they wrote about. But anyway, we're in that period.
It's like a cattle market where you take your cows to be looked at.
Yeah, it's really not very good from the descriptions we get. It's quite distressing. But we do know that he chose the niece of Manuel, this general that he wanted to get back into the empire. So,
weird.
Yes, you figure there's a bit of political manoeuvring going on there. Theophilos then exiles his own mother for being too overbearing. So that's fun. Stop.
Mother, I'm exiling. No, you're not. No, I really got to... No, I'm... I'll tell you how to do it properly.
Yeah, he obviously did not like his parents much, did Theophilos.
No.
He then attempted to be the best ruler he could be. He's cleaned house a little bit. He's going to be the best ruler. He investigated corruption. He took tours of the city on his horseback, and he spotted things that needed to be fixed. He talked to people in the markets to check whether prices were going up or down unfairly. He actually seemed to care, and he was doing a good job at ruling. People started to really warm to him because he was an emperor who was like out and about, and they saw the city starting to improve.
Yeah, look, Emperor, we've almost cleaned these bloodstains from those people you had murdered the other month. Look, they're almost gone. Look, you can see it.
Incidentally, by the way, the Empire seems to have suddenly found some money, and we're not sure where it comes from at this point. So this is one reason why Theophilos...
Did they find it or something?
No, that was a different time that they literally found some under the floorboards. But I remembered that happened. But yeah, no, that was earlier than this. No, we just don't know. There's a couple of theories that they opened some new gold mines from somewhere, or... who knows? We just don't know. But there's a reason why Theophilos was able to start rebuilding the city a little bit. Anyway, things then get very messy. I mentioned in the episode that this was one of the hardest episodes to research in all of the series, because it was just all over. The sources are a mess and they contradict each other. And I kind of made up my own chronology using the sources I had in a kind of, this is one way it could have happened. And we kind of stuck with that. Yeah, because there was no way, you just can't make it reconcile. So we decided that this was the way it happens. So Manuel comes back to the Empire. Hooray, they've got their good general back. Not only that, he comes with troops that he'd taken from the Caliphate. Hooray. Theophilos welcomes him, and then they head off and defeated some Caliphate raiders on the border. Mamun, the Caliph at the time, then attacked in force in retaliation. Manuel was sent off to meet him, but lost. Theophilos then heads out with Manuel. Emperor goes in person. This time they defeat the Caliphate, hooray, and they push him out of Roman land. All good. So Theophilos returns to the capital and celebrates a triumph, something we had not seen in an age. An actual triumph. It was wonderful. Everyone enjoyed themselves. He went and sat on his new throne. You should remember this. This is the throne with the mechanical birds and the mechanical lions that actually roared. Yes. So, yeah, he's got his amazing throne. He's having a triumph. Everything's great. They had the first recorded jousting contest in Roman history at this point, because they're having a celebration. Why not? It was great. Huge celebrations. But then a month later, Mamun was back, and Theophilos has to go and fight against the person he's just triumphed against. So that's a bit embarrassing. And even more embarrassing, Theophilos was heavily defeated this time. Mamun made it clear that this was not a raid. I am coming to wipe you out. I'm going to keep on taking Roman land until I get to your capital, and then I'm going to take your capital.
That doesn't sound fair.
It's not good. Panic starts in the capital. Unrest begins. Theophilos cracks down on iconoclasm.
Sounds like the guy from last week.
Oh, yeah, we're in that region. His godfather and his father had kind of done a don't ask, don't tell policy with icons. Yeah, we don't do icons, but do whatever you want. We don't really care. Theophilos was determined, however, no icons. We need order, no icons. This is strict. Is that an icon in your hand?
It looks like an icon to me.
Not anymore, is it? Because I've chopped off your hands. And then word comes through.
It's an icon.
Well, word comes through, Mamun was dead. Hurrah! Died of
Hey.
lurgy. It's fantastic. So the caliphate backs off, dealing with internal issues. Just in time for Theophilos. Peace comes to the empire. But the royal family soon start falling out. Theophilos suspected his wife and his mother-in-law of secretly teaching his own children about icons, damn it.
No.
Ooh, yes, not good. So there's tension in the royal family, and then a man suddenly turns up, knocks on the door of the city. His name is Nasir. Nasir wants asylum from the caliphate. He's brought a whole bunch of men with him. Can I come and fight for you? Now, Nasir was from aristocracy, so he's not just going to go and join the army. He comes in and he's part of the royal court. He's an important name. I say an important name. His name wasn't so important that he didn't change it to prove how Roman he was, and he changed his name to Theophobos instead of Theophilos. There's a nice little symmetry there.
So he's scared of Theos.
Scared of Theos, yes, exactly. So he marries the sister or the sister-in-law of Theophilos. It's not clear which one, but he's tied into the royal family at this point. And with this boost, Theophilos decides to attack the caliphate. He wins some victories, hooray. Theophobos, fighting for him, also does well. And then they decide to have a triumph once more, hooray.
Hey.
Theophilos actually joins in the chariot races. He rides for the blues. We have an emperor who rode in the chariot races. That's got to help him out.
This will bode well for later on, I feel.
Yes, it will. You'll be shocked to learn that he wins this time. No one's going to defeat the Emperor, are they? Anyway, just like last time, however, this triumph was somewhat premature. News comes through. The Caliphate are attacking again. Theophilos goes out to defend the Empire once more. The battle's going well, but then a storm hits. An insanely torrential downfall kind of storm. The rain is so bad that everything just turns to chaos instantly. Theophilos is encircled by the enemy completely. They're like, he's trapped, he's going to die. And then suddenly, Manuel storms into the circle and then manages to grab Theophilos and rides out with him. And Theophilos is saved.
Awesome.
Hooray. Theophilos finds himself in the middle of Anatolia with his army scattered to the wind. Not good. So he spends some time getting his troops back together when he hears news from Theophobos. My men have just declared me emperor. I'm sorry about that. I've told them
Whoopsie
no.
daisy.
I definitely said no. I'm really sorry, but you're going to hear rumour that I've declared myself emperor. I didn't. They declared me, and I said no. Really sorry. News then reaches Theophilos that one of his cities has been utterly destroyed by the Caliphate, and I mean destroyed, wiped off the map, destroyed.
Oh.
Yeah.
The guy with the crown just tears the bit off, so there's no point.
Yeah. Theophilos has a bit of a breakdown over this. He's had enough. It's just things aren't going well for him. He rallied a little bit when he was able to coordinate an attack on the Caliphate with the son of Charlemagne. Nonetheless, doesn't actually happen, but they're starting to plot it. But before it happened, news comes through. A storm has destroyed the Caliphate fleet. So there you go, the Caliphate don't have their ships anymore. This is great news. But it's not enough to save Theophilus' life because he's deathly ill.
Oh.
He asked to see his brother-in-law, Theophobos, to come to his deathbed. Theophobos was seized because Theophilus did not trust the man and thought, as soon as I die, my brother-in-law's going to try and take over.
I said I wouldn't.
Well, Theophobos was seized.
I'm not dead, what do you care?
Well, he was seized and his head was chopped off.
Oh.
Theophilus then holds up the head and says, and I quote, "From this moment, I am no longer Theophilus, and you are no longer Theophobos." And then he dies. So he gets a cool-ass line at the end there.
That's quite cool. I mean, that obviously didn't happen in that way,
well,
but it's quite cool.
But it's cool.
It's very
cool.
Shakespearean, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's good.
I die.
I think we gave it to him mainly because he tried his hardest to be a genuinely good ruler, and we don't see that very often. But he also had some good military victories. It was back and forth with the Caliphate, but arguably the Caliphate was stronger than the Empire at this point, so pretty good.
But if you start wasting his time checking out the price of wheat, why doesn't it better?
What do you think? Is that worthy of going through?
I think morally, yes.
Yeah.
But what did he do for the Empire?
Yeah, he kept it going.
I mean, he kept it going. They were more wealthy, I guess, and people were more happy, so I guess he got a good first success as Ultimus.
Yeah.
So, I'd take that back. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, well, I mean, he got... Phytius Masters got 12, only 4 for Opprobrium Crazium. Success as Ultimus was his best round, 15. The people were happy. Imago Facius was 4, Tempo Completo 1.63, a total score 63, which ranks him 15th. Okay, right. Let's see the competition, shall we?
Yeah.
Alexios IV.
Alexios IV, 1203 to 1204. Not boding well. We now jump forth to the frankly underwhelming Angelos dynasty, and he is the only Angelos to get Gene Caesar, and as I said earlier, he only got it because he was so rubbish. Yes, let's not beat around the bush here, let's be blunt. So, he was born in 1182, just as last week's winner of the round, Andronicus, was heading to the city. So we're in this time period. Andronicus is... Yeah. Andronicus is coming to take over.
Yeah.
Alexios' dad is caught up in the revolts against Andronicus. And Alexios IV, as a baby, would not have noticed that his grandmother had been tied to the battering ram as Andronicus tried to take the city.
That still makes me laugh.
Yeah.
It shouldn't.
When Alexios IV was 4 years old, some men came to his house to arrest and, to put it bluntly, kill his father, Isaac II, Angelos. But Isaac II rode out of the stables and killed one of the men on his way out in a dramatic way. It was all very cool. It almost got him Gene Caesar, but it didn't quite get it. His father then coups and becomes emperor, and Alexios then becomes heir. 10 years pass, so he's now roughly about 14. He would have lived as a prince. Then his uncle blinds his father and takes over. 14-year-old Alexios IV is thrown in prison.
How old?
14.
4. I thought you said 4 for a second. So.
No. He's 14 now. Yeah.
Right.
His dad's still around, by the way. His dad wasn't murdered. He was just blinded and deposed. So, 14 years old, you're thrown in prison. Your dad's now blind. Your uncle's taken over. But soon after this, his father and uncle sort of make up, which must have been tricky.
Do you agree that to forgive your brother for blinding you? Please sign here. Where?
Yeah, it's a bit like that. Well, it was decided that Alexios be released. I mean, it's not his fault. He's only 14 years old. Come on, release him. But he was placed under house arrest, so he's no longer in a cell. Isaac II, the deposed emperor, then from his monastery, used some contacts to set up a plan to help his son escape. So one day, Alexios IV goes down to a ship that was in the palace harbour, and he gets into a special barrel that was created to smuggle him out. This had water in the top, and it had water in the bottom, but the middle bit had space for a person. Yeah. So you could look in the top, and you could pull the plug out the bottom, and liquid. Oh. Yeah, it was a very special barrel. That was really good. The palace guards strongly suspected that Alexios IV was on this ship. It was the only place he could be.
And his barrel is literally talking.
Well, they ripped the ship apart. They couldn't find him. So it's like, well, he's obviously not here. So the ship was let go. Alexios IV escapes. He arrives in Venice, where the Fourth Crusade is being organised. Now, the Fourth Crusade was essentially the Franks and the Venetians. And they were in the middle of lying to their own troops. They were telling the troops that they were going to the Holy Land, but really they were planning to go to Egypt, because Egypt was where the cash was at the time. Yeah. That didn't sound as holy, so we'll tell the troops we're going to the Holy Land. Yeah. But then suddenly this exiled heir to the Roman throne was suddenly with them, and a decision was made. They said to little Alexios, we'll help you get the throne, but only if you do this, and then presented a list. And that list essentially was become a vassal to the West. Yeah. You will not be able to run your own empire, and also the Eastern Church will be rolled into the Western Church with the Pope on top. It was a full sellout of the Roman Empire. Yeah. Alexios goes for it. He is declared emperor. The Franks then attack the capital by land. The Venetians attack Constantinople by sea. Panic in the capital. Long story short, the capital falls, which we perhaps didn't go into as much detail as perhaps we should have in retrospect of how bad this fall was. When they took the city hard. This was a full-on sacking of the city. Life was miserable for the people inside. Constantinople had never been taken like this.
Was it the first time it was taken?
Yes, the first time it was properly taken. All the times before, it's been like opening the gates or Justinian II through the Suez kind of thing. No, this is actually breaching the walls, taking the city, taking it. It's a miserable time for everyone involved. Anyway, Alexios IV is put on the throne, and his blind father is taken out of the monastery to add legitimacy, and he was made co-emperor once more. Yeah. But everyone knew who really was in charge. It was the Latin forces. The city riots, understandably. They don't want the Latins in charge. Most of the city is burnt down. Father and son start to blame each other for what had happened. Alexios IV spends more and more time with the Latin nobles because they seem to not hate him. For some reason, all of his subjects hated him, and Alexios IV couldn't figure out why.
I don't understand.
According to the source, however, Alexios IV's new friends, the Latin nobles, spent all their time mocking him behind his back.
Oh, do you think it was like really to his back though, or during a meeting, like what an idiot he is over there? Look
Probably
at him. He's sitting there,
yeah,
a tear rolling down his cheek. Oh,
probably. Incidentally, Nicholas, our shortest ruling emperor, was declared emperor for about a week around this time, and then stops being emperor. Anyway, Alexios Doukas then coups, and he had Alexios IV strangled with a bowstring after he was poisoned twice. The poison didn't work, so they just strangled him. He's couped very shortly afterwards. And that's it. That is the reign of Alexios. He sold out the Roman Empire, and then he was murdered by an angry subject.
He did survive poisoning twice, though. That's quite impressive.
Yeah, he took daily antidotes to boost his immune system, so...
Is that what they, microdose with poison?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, that's pretty good. He was awful. He was absolutely awful. Phytius Maximus 0, Opprobrium Crasium 15, Successus Ultimus 0, Imago Facius 0. He looked like a spotty teenager. Tempo Completo 0.06. That gives him a total score of 15.06. Almost all of that was from the fact that he sold the empire out. We gave him Gene Caesar because if you're going to point to an emperor and go, that's the one I'm talking about for being awful, he's a strong contender for being literally the worst Roman emperor.
Yeah.
Does that mean he goes
up
through?
There with Quintilis. Oh, worse than Quintilis, because Quintilis knew when to quit.
Quintilis knew when to quit, and he did it for the emperor.
Yeah.
Alexios IV was a full-on traitor.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one thing to coup, but to sell the empire to a different empire and then get them to coup for you, it's just not a good look, Alexios. Bad Alexios. So, but, it was so bad, he's still here with us. But is it enough for him to go through to the semi-finals?
No.
Yeah, he's going to struggle, isn't he? Well, let's go on to the next one then. Irene 797 to 802, our first female emperor. Leo, as in Conan the Shepherd Boy, Leo III, was the founder of the dynasty that Irene was in. So we're around that time. Irene was born in around 750 in Athens, and when she was a teenager, she was selected to marry the heir. This is Leo IV, who was the grandson of Leo III. Marry into the royal family, you'll be the empress one day. So she changes her name to Irene. We've got no idea what she was called before. And then a year later, she gives birth to little Constantine. Yeah. But it wasn't all happy. Her husband, Leo IV, was not a well man. And then Leo IV's father dies. So Leo IV, the sick husband, becomes the emperor. 5 years go by. There was some tension because Irene loved icons and her husband didn't. But their differences were solved when Leo IV dies. Yes. Irene was in her late 20s, and she had a 9-year-old son, Constantine, who became Emperor Constantine VI. Now, things were problematic in the general. The emperor was a boy, and the regent was a woman, and an iconophile at that. So a lot of people were very unhappy with what was going on. A couple of generals revolted, but Irene moved very quickly and had those high up in the plot arrested and beaten. She didn't kill them, she just monked them, thinking that she didn't want to come across as too ruthless. Yeah. She then attempted to shore up political power by engaging little Constantine to the daughter of the power in the West at the time, and this was none other than Charlemagne.
Ooh.
Who, if we do Holy Roman Emperors next, will be episode 1.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
we're in that time. Talks get underway. But Irene was distracted by the fact that the whole world now seemed to think that the empire should be invaded, because it looked weak. The Caliphate and the Bulgars in particular decide it's time to take a chunk out of the Romans. However, using competent generals that she could trust, she was able to hold back both the Caliphate and the Bulgars for a while. Irene's support grows to the point that she no longer really feels like she is clinging on by her fingertips until Constantine VI was old enough. She starts to think she is actually ruling the empire, because she is.
Well,
and more importantly, other people start seeing it. So she has managed to be so competent a leader that other people start seeing her as an emperor, and this has never happened before. So she decides, well, if I'm in charge, I'm in charge. I'm going to push through something big. I'm going to end iconoclasm and reunite the church.
So she sacrificed her own beliefs for the greater good.
Oh, no. She
Oh.
She was an iconophile. She liked the icons.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was going to get rid of the hatred of icons. She's bringing
I
icons
see.
back. Getting the Jesus statues with the
Yeah.
sunglasses on back. That's what she was going to do. Yeah.
Bloody Jesus.
Yeah, so she gets rid of the old patriarch and she puts a new one in, and then she writes to the Pope. Look what I'm doing.
Hey, Pope.
Yeah, it's
Check this out.
we're getting back to icons. A meeting was set up with leading figures across the Christian world. Icons are back, baby. Oh yeah.
I'm bringing icons back.
Yeah. But then the meeting was stormed by very angry men. How dare you bring icons back? Irene, outraged, orders the guards to take these men outside, but the guards openly disobey her orders.
Ooh.
Yeah. How dare you bring icons back? We disagree with you. Now, amazingly, the men who stormed the meeting didn't kill everyone. They left everyone alive, but they made it very clear we will not tolerate icons. I don't care if we've got an ecumenical council here, you are not going to bring icons back. The meeting breaks up, everyone's very shaken. Irene looks into what happened. These men were loyal to the old emperor, so her dead father-in-law. And that was mainly part of an army that she had lost most control over.
Right.
So she comes up with a plan. She declares that they were going to get Syria back. It's time to get Syria off the caliphate. And who shall we send? She asks loudly to herself. Why not that army who I can't control very well? So she sends that army as far away as possible, but then secret orders are revealed where the army is disbanded in Syria. It's like, right, no more orders for you guys, no more pay. We're in the middle of Syria. Make your own way home. Bye.
See you soon.
Yeah, that's it, it's just gone. She then finds the guards who had disobeyed her orders and she exiles all of them and all of their families. Anyone they knew, exiled. Irene was not messing about, but equally she wasn't being too harsh. She wasn't killing people.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Yeah.
she's being very restrained.
She's being restrained, but she is getting stuff done. She then calls the Ecumenical Council once more, tells everyone it's okay, I've sorted it out, no one's going to come and be scary this time, and this time it does work. Icons are back, baby. Oh yeah. Unfortunately, Charlemagne hears about this. He's not happy. He thinks that this Ecumenical Council's not right. So Irene calls off the engagement. It's not going to work. Little Constantine's a bit older now, and he's not happy. He was about to get married to the daughter of Charlemagne, and now he's not. He was even less happy when he was forced to marry someone called Maria, who he did not like. But Mum said that's what he had to do. Then Irene was told that her son was plotting to take over the government. I mean, Constantine was the emperor. It's just Irene's doing everything. So Constantine starts thinking, hang on, I'm emperor, I'm going to take over. Irene was furious at her son, confronted him.
Wait till I get you home.
Well, quite literally, slapped him around the face and then grounded him. He was confined to the palace.
You will go into your bedroom and think about what you've done.
Yeah, he then exiled all of Constantine's friends who had been convincing him that he should do this.
Oh, drunk friends.
Yeah. But the sands were shifting. One regiment of the army then demanded that Irene send her son to them. She was forced to do it. There's nothing she could do. They would just coup otherwise. So she sends her son to the army, and the army then march straight back to the palace with him at the head and put him on the throne. Irene is put under house arrest. Her power's gone. Or has it? Because a year after that, roughly, she's very much calling the shots again. We're not really clear what happened, but it would appear few people were impressed with Constantine and started to say things like, things ticked over a lot better when Irene was calling the shots. Maybe we should start listening to Irene again. A couple of revolts happen. One is put down by Constantine leading the army, which is nice. He felt strong enough to take the throne once more. No, listen to me, not my mum. So again, Irene is sidelined and essentially under house arrest once again. But then one day she manages to talk to the head of the guard, and they hatch a plot. One day, when Constantine was in the Hippodrome, Irene has the guards loyal to her take over the palace, while assassins go to kill her son. Yeah. She takes the palace, but the assassination plot fails. Constantine flees towards a nearby army. Now, Irene realises that if he gets to that army, she will be dead, because that army will turn to the capital and kill her. But fortunately, she had a backup plan that she'd already hatched, because she had approached a couple of Constantine's closest friends and told them, if Constantine escapes the assassination plot, just bring him back to me. And they do. So whilst Constantine's running away, he's with two of his mates, and they just grab him and take him back to his mother. He is put into the purple room in the palace, the very room he was born in, and he waits there for a while, and then eventually some guards come in, and they pluck out his eyes. Yeah. Or it's vinegar, we're not sure, but yeah. There we go. He is blinded. Irene blinds her own son. And he dies of the wounds shortly afterwards. Yeah. Irene is now 100% in charge. The first time a woman has ever been emperor. She no longer is this regent. She is emperor. And this was not liked at all by a lot of people.
Of course not.
But the current church were very happy because she'd ended iconoclasm, and the church at the moment were full of iconophiles. So she had support. But the army were furious. They were not happy. Meanwhile, in the West, it was decided that a woman could not be in charge of the Roman Empire. They fought in Italy and other parts of Europe. So Charlemagne used the political wins that he had created for himself to have himself crowned the Roman Emperor. Yeah. The Western Empire is back.
Yay!
Hooray! Therefore, season 3 can happen, surely, said Charlemagne. Irene was furious, but then received word from Charlemagne, why don't we get married? If we get married, unify the empire. East and Western empires together. Irene jumps at it. This will keep her alive. Irene, by this point, realises she is on very shaky grounds. Having Charlemagne on her side could help. But unfortunately for her, and for the hopes of a reunited empire, Irene then gets ill. A finance administrator called Nikepheros then uses this as his chance to coup, and the Nikepheron dynasty is created, the glorious Nikepherons. And Irene dies shortly afterwards. So that is Irene. Mostly goes down in history as A, being the first female emperor, but more for blinding her own son and being absolutely monstrous. But as we discovered looking into it, actually, she did a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
She did also blind her own son, which is never good. She got 7 for Vitus Maximus, 8 for Opprobrium Crazium, the blinding of the sun, 10 for Successus Ultimus, 1.25 for Imago Facius, 1.88 for Tempo Completo, a okay score of 28.13, ranking 37th.
I think we're a bit harsh with Opprobrium Crazium, because although there's a lot of... There's nothing crazy about it. It's very calculated, and this is the reason why, because I'm going to die, kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe we were. A little bit. I'm still more impressed with Irene than I ever thought I would be.
Yeah.
I think she did a very good job. Better than Theophilos. Yeah, it's tricky. But still, we don't need to decide yet. Because now we need to talk about our winner of the round, because let's face it, he's going to win. Heraclius, the big hitter of the week. 610 to 641. And the founder of the Heraclian dynasty. Now, it was a long time ago. How much do you remember about our second place emperor?
Absolutely nothing.
Right, it will come back. We don't have much on his early life. His father was also called Heraclius, and he was a general under Maurice. Heraclius the Elder was put in charge of Africa. This is how far back we are. Africa's still in the empire.
Wow.
Yeah. Heraclius the Elder is put in charge of Africa, and his son, our Heraclius, went with him. Maurice was then deposed by the crazy Emperor Phocas, and the empire starts falling apart. It's the worst state it's been in since the start of Season 1. Heraclius the Elder sends his son to take the capital off the mad emperor. First, however, a general loyal to the Heraclians took Egypt, stopping the capital from getting its grain, and then our Heraclius approaches the capital. Phocas was so hated by this point that the guard defect to Heraclius, and he essentially walks into the capital and he takes it. He then has a very busy day. He enters the palace and he finds and he kills Phocas. After that, he has a wedding and he marries his fiancée, who had been kept prisoner in the city. Oh. And then, all on the same day, he then is crowned in a coronation. So
that's a very busy day.
It's a very busy day. It's one of those days you'd wake up the next day and just go, whew, got a lot done yesterday.
Yeah.
Pulls out his to-do list and just happily ticks away. Anyway, the next day he takes stock. The empire is a mess, like I say. It's been torn apart from internal disputes, but more importantly, the Persians were just destroying them. They had a superstar general at this point called Sharbaraz, depending on how you pronounce his name. Sharbaraz was just taking chunks out of the east. They'd just taken Antioch. This is the first time Antioch had fallen, by the way. Back then, this was back when Antioch was one of the major cities jewelling the crown of the empire. So losing Antioch was absolutely shocking. They had no money. The army was weak. Then Heraclius' wife dies, so Heraclius is sad, and news comes through that Sharbaraz has taken Damascus, and then Jerusalem. Shockwaves go through the empire once more. Jerusalem's the holy city, and it's gone. Yeah. And then more bad news. The holy city had attempted to revolt against the Persians and killed all the Persians and the Jews in the city. Because if you're massacring people, why not throw the Jews in with them, I suppose, they thought. So nasty times there. Sharbaraz then swings back round. He'd left the city with a small garrison of Persians and then finds out that that garrison has just been murdered by the local population. So Sharbaraz swings back round and just massacres the whole city. 100,000 people dead overnight.
Wow.
Yeah. So, not very good. Meanwhile, Heraclius marries his own niece, and people were horrified at the incest.
Oh, that's a bit weird.
Well, it's really not looking good. It doesn't look like Heraclius is fixing anything. This is not looking like he's going to be leading the points anytime soon. However, things were falling apart so quickly that the church realised if Heraclius is not able to hold back the Persians, then the Persians would be able to invade and the church would just end. So they grit their teeth and they okay the union between Heraclius and his niece and just hope that Heraclius starts pulling his bleep together. By this point, the empire was Africa, bits of Italy, Greece, and the land around the capital, and that is it. The Persians have taken the rest. The empire is just absolutely destroyed. And Heraclius was fed up. Whenever he tried to do anything, the politics of the city got in the way. So he just announced, fine, you know what? We're moving the capital of the Roman Empire to Africa. We'll go roughly where Carthage used to be.
Does that mean we have to, lift the city up and move it? Yes!
Yeah. Well, the leading men of the city begged him not to do this. No, you can't do that. No, we're the aristocracy of Constantinople. You can't move the capital.
The walls are far too heavy.
Well, rumblings of the coup died down. People realised that the empire was on its last legs. Look, if we fight internally, we will fall. If Heraclius falls, we will fall. We need to get our crap together here. So, Heraclius was able to use this to finally get some oaths sworn. He would keep the capital in Constantinople, and in return, everyone in the city would stop messing about and actually follow his orders.
Got it.
Yep. Heraclius then goes to the church. You lot are going to give me some money. A lot of money. We're broke, and we're about to be invaded, and we will be destroyed. You guys are rolling in cash.
We cannot give you... We're barely struggling. We're on the breadline here. Is that a gold cross behind you?
No,
yes.
No,
it is...
Gilded, a lot of gilded stuff.
Yes.
The church give in. Again, they realise this is do or die time, so they reluctantly agree. They hand over some money. So, with finally some cash behind him and a sort of complainant aristocracy, Heraclius is able to push through the military reforms that he'd been trying to push through since he started.
Good.
And he starts training his forces up, while politically making deals with the Avars so he'd be able to go and fight in the east without the Avars attacking him in the back. Yeah, the Avars are here.
Hello, sir. Ready to serve and die.
So, the forces were finally ready. Heraclius realised just how desperate this was. He had one army. That was it. And if that army lost a battle, the empire would fall. End of daytimes. So he announced to the shock of many that he was going to lead the forces himself. Now, this is the first time this has happened in centuries that an emperor was going to do this. We had covered a lot of emperors by this point who never did this. We were very impressed. And then he took his forces, he looked directly where the Persians were, and then he went in the opposite direction.
Just run for your lives, lads. Run for your lives.
Well, yeah, it really confused everyone, the Persians in particular. What the hell's he doing? Well, what he did is he took them out of the playing field, and he spent all summer conducting mock battles with his new army.
Nice.
He actually trained them. Shock.
So, bear with me, guys. When you hold your sword, don't hold it by the sharp end. Oh, yes, it's not a club. Oh, yes, I see.
Yeah, really helped. So, eventually, he was able to get his forces ready. He heads to Armenia, and he defeats the Star General Chavarez. Well done.
Yeah.
The Persian general was very confident, obviously. The Romans had nothing that could have stopped him before, but suddenly it was clear something was very wrong. These men were green, but they knew what they were doing. The Romans were outmanoeuvring him. The Persians weren't able to deal with it, and Heraclius defeats them, so much that they're able to take the Persian camp. Heraclius then rushes back home to make sure the capital's okay and the Avars aren't betraying him. Everything's fine, it's politically settled, so he heads back out onto the field. He then takes the city that the Persian King of Kings, Khosrow, was staying in. So that was a huge win.
Yeah.
And then he keeps going. He then attacks the hometown of Zoroaster, so the holy city of the Persians.
Ooh.
And he destroys it. Jerusalem's sacking had been avenged. Everyone was very happy. Then he wintered, not wanting to overstretch himself too much over victory. He slows himself down. He's getting lots of victories, but he doesn't want to push too far into Persian land. Khosrow, therefore, has time to put his forces together. Not one, but 3 armies were sent to wipe out the Roman forces, and all 3 of them were roughly the same size as Heraclius' forces. Vastly outnumbered. But Heraclius has a plan. He sent some of the locals nearby to go and defect to Chavarez. Chavarez was the leader of one of the Persian armies. Now, these locals defected and told Chavarez that Heraclius was fleeing from one of the other Persian armies, who had rushed ahead and was about to get all the glory. Now, Chavarez, annoyed by this, that he wouldn't get glory, starts speeding off to go and join in. Thinking that the Romans were fleeing, he didn't prepare as much, maybe, as he usually did. And all of a sudden, he stumbled into a very ready and waiting Roman army, and much to his shock, his fellow army wasn't around. So, he was defeated. And instead of having to fight all 3 armies at once, this trick means that Heraclius was able to fight all 3 armies one after another. And because the first one were taken by surprise, he was able to defeat them. And then the second 2 were dismayed that they had fallen for a trick and their morale was low, so he was able to beat them. So he was able to rout the Persian armies.
This sounds like a hilarious scene where Chavarez is speaking to like a really young soldier, like first day on the job. It's like, so what you need to make sure of is if you're on the ball, always constantly aware of your surroundings, lifts up a branch, Roman army.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly what happened, yes.
What do we do, sir? We run.
Well, the war just keeps on going. Another year goes by. Fighting continues. At one point, Heraclius has Chavarez fleeing over a bridge. But it was a trap. Chavarez had done this on purpose. The Roman forces followed and they were ambushed, so Heraclius rushes forward to help. And I'll just quote here. Then a giant of a man met and attacked Heraclius in the middle of the bridge. The emperor struck him and hurled him into the river. When he fell, the barbarians turned in flight and threw themselves into the river like frogs. So we've got a scene of Heraclius fighting a giant on a beach, defeating the giant, and impressing everyone so much that the Persians just run and flee. Very impressive. Khosrow, the king of kings at this point, is furious that this last ragtag army of Romans couldn't be squashed. I mean, he's so close to just wiping the Roman Empire off the map, and he can't do it. So, fine, let's not fight this army that's running around my land. Let's go to their capital, he thinks. So Khosrow writes to the Avars and says, look, if we both attack Constantinople at the same time, they will fall. They're weak. Heraclius hears about this and decides not to go back to defend the city.
Huh.
Yeah.
As I'm sure what the senators were thinking at the time.
Well, he sent a letter back saying, you guys have got this, yeah?
Just big walls, you'll be fine.
Those walls are really good walls, and if I bring this army back, that's it, we're hemmed in. But I am causing serious trouble to them over here, so I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing and cause them a lot of pain, and you guys just hunker down. All you need to do is survive. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Long story short, they manage to do this. They hold on in the capital. Meanwhile, Heraclius' brother defeats one of the leading Persian generals, so that's really good. Heraclius then decides to go for the jugular and heads to the Persian palace near Ctesiphon. He moves in winter to take them by surprise, which does work. But eventually the Persian forces do know what's going on, so they send a really large force to go and defend their capital. By this point, the war in total has been going on for decades, but Heraclius himself has been fighting in it for a good few years. It's a lot of fighting going on, but this is clearly going to be a decisive battle in the war. The two armies line up, and then we get a story about how a group of 3 Persian officers come forward to the middle to talk one-on-one with the emperor. Heraclius apparently goes out to meet them, and if we can believe the source, the Persian generals attack Heraclius, the cowards. But Heraclius is able to kill all 3 of them with his sword.
Hey, just spin it around like a helicopter.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this probably almost certainly didn't happen, but it was a cool story.
The
battle then starts, and Heraclius and the leading general for the Persians meet in the middle of the field. So again, almost certainly didn't happen, but it's a cool story. Heraclius chops the head off the general. So there we go. Yeah, some good fightings. Then Heraclius intercepts a message to Chavares from Khosrow. Chavares is trying to siege Constantinople, so he's off. Khosrow sends a message to Chavares, ordering Chavares to come back and defend him. Heraclius, however, has intercepted the message, so he sends on the message, but changes it. Changes it to, we have defeated Heraclius, stay where you are, sieging the capital of the Romans. Khosrow, by this point, is forced to flee back to Ctesiphon. His palace is overrun. His best general isn't coming, and Khosrow doesn't know why, so he suspects treason. So he sends a letter to the generals under Chavares for Chavares' arrest. And again, Heraclius intercepts this one too. This time, he doesn't change the orders, he sends it on. But instead of sending it to the generals, he sends it directly to Chavares. So Chavares realises that his king of kings wants him dead. Yeah. So, Chavares revolts. Khosrow is usurped and killed by his own people. The Persians sue for peace with the Romans. When Heraclius became emperor, the Persians were poised to take over the empire.
Yeah.
I mean, it was about to fall, and they had nothing but a small ragtag army. He has, in a few years, defeated the Persians more comprehensively than any other emperor bar Trajan.
And that's quite impressive.
Oh, yes, it is.
Miraculous, almost, you could...
It's insane how much he managed to do. The fact he managed to win this is insane. The Persians outnumbered him a ridiculous amount. They were more experienced as well. And, Heraclius was just a better general.
Yeah, definitely.
And this was an age where emperors didn't go to war, and he did it. So, yeah. Anyway, Heraclius goes back. Lots of celebrations. And in retrospect, he should have died then. Because had he had died then, he might have won Season 2. But not quite. We've got a little bit more. News comes through that the Persians are so weak now that they're even having trouble dealing with a small Arab tribe. Then word comes through that there's some other Arab raiders coming into Roman land, so Heraclius, still celebrating, sends some troops down to deal with it. Heraclius spends his...
ragtag bunch, it's fine.
I'll be fine, nothing will come of this.
Yeah.
Heraclius then spends time trying to sort out the split within the church. This is Monophysite times, this isn't the iconoclasm. Monophysites, oh yes. So he's trying to deal with that, but we're not going to go into that now. And then more news of these Arab raiders come through. Apparently, they've got a general called Khalid, and he was someone to be reckoned with. Maybe that's why they're making waves. Anyway, well, not important. But the Persians were really struggling. Oh, the Persians, eh? Yeah, they're so weak now. And then those raiders suddenly appeared in Syria, and actually it turned out they were somehow linked to the ones fighting the Persians, which was a bit weird. Around this time, Heraclius would have learnt that while he was fighting his war with the Persians, a man claiming to be a prophet had united the Arabian tribes. And this man had died recently, but his father-in-law Abu Bakr was now in charge, and this General Khalid was working for him. And then news came through that the Persians had been wiped out, and Damascus, Jerusalem, and Messa had all been attacked. Yeah, the shock goes through the empire. People realise, oh dear, this is another Attila. This is a sweeping barbarian invasion that just comes through and wipes everything before it. Scary stuff. Still, Heraclius has the best Roman army that has been seen for a very long time. So, okay, it's time for me to go out and deal with this. You want something doing, go and do it yourself, he thinks. So he goes to defend Antioch. The forces meet, but the people he was fighting weren't Persians. Heraclius' forces had been trained very well and knew how to fight when they were fighting the Persians. The Muslims, however, as they were calling themselves, they fought differently. They were used to fighting in the hot, arid places.
Yeah.
And they had different tactics the Romans hadn't come across. The Romans were utterly destroyed. News then came through that Abu Bakr had died. Fantastic. Great. Okay, all this will just blow over then. No, apparently this isn't a cult of personality, because a man named Omar has just taken over, and these Muslims are still coming and they're still organised, and they are still very good at fighting. Ooh dear. Jerusalem then falls completely, and then just Damascus. Omar treated Jerusalem so well that many in the city didn't really see it as an invasion. More of a change of management. After all, the Persians had come in and massacred them. And then Heraclius had come round, and he said, I've liberated you, but Heraclius was the wrong sort of Christian now they thought about it, linking to the Monophysite stuff.
Yeah.
And, okay, I mean, these new guys have a new religion, and it's not Christianity, but it's not the wrong sort of Christian, so, yeah, okay, fair enough. Anyway, Heraclius heads home to regroup. Okay, this is a bigger deal than I thought it was going to be. But he's old and he's losing it slightly by this point. He's way past it. Shown by the fact that he refuses to cross open water. He's just suddenly afraid of the sea. And he refuses to cross the Bosphorus. Now, the Bosphorus, as you know, is very, very small.
It's basically a puddle.
So they build a bridge over it and they line it with bushes to convince him that he's just going down a road.
Ignore the swaying of the road, it's fine.
Anyway, just as he's on his deathbed, Heraclius receives word that these Arabian Muslims have invaded Egypt and Egypt has fallen. And then he dies. So that's Heraclius. Phytius Maximus, 18, because... Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Only reason why he didn't get full marks was because he lost against the Muslim forces at the end. Probium Crazim, he gets 12. I think we commented at the time this was an area he wasn't going to score very well in until right at the end. It's almost as if he realised he was low in this one and he decided to go crazy and say he couldn't cross water. There were a few other things in his episode that we covered as well for him getting that. I know that seems high when I just gloss over it, but he did a few other things. Don't forget, he married his niece as well. That got factored in. Yeah. Anyway, Successus Ultimus, 16. I mean, he saves the Empire from utter annihilation.
Yeah.
You should be thinking high numbers, 20, 19, but again, the end of his life. Yeah. Image Facius, 4.00, Tempo Completo, very impressive 3.88, scoring very, very well, 53.88. He defeated Aurelius, which absolutely blew our minds when it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that puts him overall second place. Do you think he deserved to get as high as he did?
I think so. If you're focusing pure on fighty, Yes, even the bit at the end, but that was a new thing, unexpected, suddenly, oh.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, I think, definitely deserving to be in that 50s club. Second place, top 3, definitely top 5. I'm impressed with him. He's one to watch.
Yes.
It would not surprise me if he gets to the final. But who knows? And let's face it, he's going through today, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, he's number 1.
Yeah, he is. So let's go back to someone who is actually a contender, shall we? Our last one, Nikepheros II. 963 to 969, Nikepheros II in the Macedonian dynasty. This is where we had 3 emperors in a row get Gene Caesar. Our man Nikepheros, then John I, and then Basil II. So, to remind you, Nikepheros and John were the 2 stepfathers of Basil II, who were friends until their deaths. Yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself. But just so you're really clear, this is the scene in the bedroom where he gets smashed in the face and they pull the beard.
Oh, yeah.
And someone sat on a bed. And yeah, it's that one. And the washerwomen going through the palace. Yeah. Anyway, born in around 912 to the Phocas family. Growing up, Constantine VII, the purple-born, became emperor. But the faction war happened, which resulted in Gene Caesar winner of round 1, by the way, Romanos I becoming emperor. Nikepheros' family were not on the winning side of the faction war, because their leader was Leo Phocas. Leo Phocas was in charge of the army faction.
Yeah.
And they lost, and Leo was blinded and ridden around on a horse and stoned. Nikepheros was 8 at the time, so... Nikepheros was 8. He probably didn't watch his uncle be ridden around on a donkey and stoned and blinded, but who knows, maybe he did. Anyway, a bit later, Nikepheros joins the army. He would have been in a leading role from the start, because he's from the Phocas family, which were important.
Yeah.
But yes, he's a general. Then Romanos is monked by his son Stephen the Stupid, and then Stephen is couped a month later. So the puppet, Constantine VII, is suddenly in real power. And the Phocas family are back in favour. So Nikepheros' father was put in charge of the whole army. But just a few years later, Nikepheros was chosen instead, because his father, and I will quote our main source at the time, brought little or no benefit to the Roman realm. A damning performance management review.
Is awful.
Yes. So Nikepheros was put in charge instead. The army suddenly starts doing much better than it had been. Nikepheros, turns out, is very good at this. The Caliphate had a very good general at this time called Scythe Sword of the Dynasty.
I remember that.
Well, interestingly, I was checking things out and I came across Scythe Sword of the Dynasty, and we'd been calling him Scythe Sword of Destiny. And I don't know whether there are 2 translations of his name or whether that's my dyslexia kicking in. And I read Dynasty as Destiny one time and it stuck. I honestly don't know. But it's still an impressive name either way. He was very good and had been kicking the Romans around for quite a while, Scythe. Anyway, Nikepheros is able to use himself and his best general and friend, John Zimisces, future John I, to great effect. John I also was in round 1, but he didn't quite go through, if you remember.
No.
Nikepheros and John win various impressive battles against the Caliphate. They even get into Syria, which we'd not seen for quite some time. Constantine VII then dies, and his son, little Romanus II, comes into power. Nikepheros is ordered to go and get Crete back in the name of the empire. So he heads to Crete, and he orders his brother to go and keep Scythe busy, and his brother does that. Nikepheros takes ships to Crete, and they were like the D-Day landing boats. I don't know if you remember this. They're boats where the fronts opened, and the cavalry rode out onto the beach.
The cavalry. Oh, I didn't get on D-Day.
Oh, they didn't. No, it's even better. Yeah, so the people in Crete were stood there watching these ships arrive, and suddenly they beach themselves on the beach. Door comes down, horses with riders ride out immediately.
What the hell?
Yeah, absolutely amazing stuff. Especially if you take into consideration Greek fire was a thing, and they had personal Greek fire, so you had people with flamethrowers. I mean, it all seems very, very modern.
So cool.
Anyway, his brother manages to defeat Scythe at this time, which is fantastic, and Nikepheros takes Crete, which was seen as almost impossible. He destroyed an Arab army, and he chopped the heads of up to 40,000 men. He chopped them off.
Like one at a time, all at once?
Don't know, maybe line them up. He then got all of these 40,000 men. You know when you're running in a circle doing high fives to everyone?
Yeah, with a sword, yeah.
It's like that with a sword, yeah. Anyway, he then collected the 40,000 heads and catapulted most of them into the capital city of Crete.
All at once, or...?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
So the people who were being sieged in this city suddenly had 40,000 heads rain on them. As you can imagine, morale broke.
Yeah, but also, they're probably family members.
Oh, yeah, this was awful. This was absolutely awful.
And they'll splat like melons on the floor.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
no,
Nikepheros was also tunnelling under the very impressive walls. These walls were so thick you could drive carts on top of them, apparently. So Nikepheros was tunnelling under them. Yeah, a very impressive taking of the city. He does it. He takes Crete. He celebrates at the Hippodrome. Hooray. He was then sent east to go and fight with Scythe, Sword of Destiny / Dynasty. Yeah. And he takes a couple of cities and gets Aleppo. This is seen as huge news. Very, very impressive. He's off doing this when news comes through. Romanos II is dead. Now, Romanos II by this point did have children. Little Basil II and his brother, future Constantine VIII. But they were very young at this point.
Yeah.
They also had a sister who was literally 2 days old when Romanos died.
2 days old.
Yeah, Theophano, the mother, Romanos' wife, was made regent. But as you can imagine, she's not really in the best state to be running things. She had literally just given birth, and her husband had just died. So she was worried, okay, I'm not in the best state to run things here. I'm in a weak position. And the Lord Chamberlain, a man named Bringus, is going to try and take over. So she very cleverly and sensibly writes to her best general, Nikepheros, get back here, protect me, I don't trust Bringus, and I'll make it worth your while, shall we say.
Wink, nudge, nudge.
Yes, Bringus hears about this and tries to politically stop Nikepheros, but the city love Nikepheros. He is their hero, and they were expecting him to come back and have a triumph like he had after the victory in Crete. Yeah. And it was the Lord Chamberlain talking about how Nikepheros was a danger. No. Nikepheros does come back. The public cheer him. Sources differ exactly what happened next, but roughly, Nikepheros convinces Bringus that I don't want to be emperor. I want to be a monk. That's my dream. So don't worry. I'm going to be a general for a bit, then I'm going to be a monk. Don't need to worry about me. In fact, I'll go off and do some more fighting, shall I? And the Senate vote for him to go back east to fight, so that's what Nikepheros does. But he probably, we don't know this for certain, visited the Empress before going and assured her that actually he was on board with her plan. I'm interested to see what you mean by make it worth my while. Anyway, he heads east. Bringus, not trusting Nikepheros, attempts a coup. He writes to John Zimisces, Nikepheros' friend and fellow general.
I recognise that name.
Well, this is future John I, that's why.
Well, there were, yeah.
Yeah. John Zimisces and Nikepheros are in the same place, fighting in the east at this point. And John gets a letter from Bringus. If you depose Nikepheros somehow, if you kill him, I will make you emperor. John reads this letter and goes into Nikepheros' tent, pulls out a knife, and opens the letter again, dramatically. And then just tells...
Did you do that last time?
Yes, I did.
That rings a bell.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, that's also not what happened. He just went to Nikepheros and told Nikepheros. John was loyal. Yeah. Nikepheros goes, oh, right, okay, well, I've got to declare myself emperor then. And he does. He doesn't siege the city, because that would look bad, so he just camps near the city and just waits. And sure enough, political pressure works. Bringus' house is stormed by a mob, and Bringus is monked. The city is set aflame. Nikepheros then enters the city and calms everyone down and acts like the hero that he is. Nikepheros then marries Theophano, and her 2 children are now safe and heirs. So little Basil too is now safe. After some problems with the church over the wedding, because this was the whole, oh, you can't marry twice thing going on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Nikepheros sets off to fight the Caliphate once more. He takes Cyprus, which is very impressive, and the mountain passes into Syria. Anatolia is well and truly Roman once more, which it wasn't before. Hugely impressive.
Hooray.
He comes home and he celebrates. And then the envoy of the Bulgars turns up. Time for that tribute payment that you've been paying ever since Romanos I's day. Now, Nikepheros didn't see the need to pay this. In fact, I'll just quote him. Shall I, the Reverend Emperor of the Romans, be reduced to paying tribute to a most wretched and an abominable people? Go and tell your leather-gnawing ruler, who is clad in leather jerkin, that the most mighty and great emperor of the Romans is coming immediately to your land, and I will pay the tribute in full.
Oh, that's a good line.
Oh, yes. However,
So cool.
However, Nikepheros wasn't a fool. He didn't want to lose his gains against the Caliphate, so he didn't just take his army and invade. Instead, he paid the Rus to go and invade Bulgaria instead. Now, slight side note here, but just so you see how it all links together, this leads to the Rus taking over Bulgaria. John I, who is emperor next, then tries to defeat the Rus, because the Rus become powerful, which he does, and is very impressive, so he got Geni Caesar. And he brings the Bulgars into the empire, but then they revolt, so Basil II, when he's emperor, has to put down the huge Bulgarian revolt, which takes him most of his rule. So that's how all that pans out.
Right.
However, that's a bit of a side note, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Despite all the gains Nikepheros had made, he is burning through the treasury. This, by the way, is the point where he should have died. If he died, he probably would have been a top 3 emperor, because things start going very wrong at this point, because the economy starts to suffer, there's grumbling in the city. Nikepheros decides to cheer people up with a show, but instead of a chariot race, it would be a mock battle, he declares. But when the hippodrome starts to fill with soldiers for the mock battle, people panic. They're not used to this, so they assume he's going to kill them all. So they stampede for the doors, and lots of people are trampled to death. Nikepheros is blamed, and his popularity plummets even more. Because of this, Nikepheros, who's always been popular before, becomes very paranoid, and he orders that a part of the palace be fortified. He then, to get out of the city, goes on campaign once more, and this time he goes to Syria. He actually does quite well. He takes some land back and some weaker cities, but his popularity did not improve in the capital. He also couldn't get Antioch back, which was what his aim was. So he leaves a general to stay outside the city and wait for him to come back. I'm going to come back in a bit and get Antioch, he says. But I've got to make sure my popularity is shored up in the capital. Then he hears a prophecy. If the Romans take Antioch, he would die soon afterwards. Then immediately afterwards, he hears that the general he left behind had accidentally taken Antioch with 300 men. Yeah, he'd done a little bit of a raid and it went surprisingly well, and then suddenly he found himself in charge of the city. It's like, oops.
Bloody hell, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Nikepheros was descending into paranoia and was convinced someone was going to kill him, so he had his friend John Zimisces arrested. But then he was released because Nikepheros' wife said, no, come on, John's not that bad. Now, if you remember John's episode and his recap in the rounds, John was getting to know Nikepheros' wife. Yes. So that's why John was released. Anyway, around this time, the Rus has defeated the Bulgars, and people realised they'd soon turn on the empire, which was worrying everyone. And then Nikepheros gets word there's a plot to kill him that very night. He sent his chief eunuch to go and search the palace, but his chief eunuch says everything is clear. Turns out the chief eunuch was in on the plan.
Yeah.
Nikepheros goes to sleep, not in his bed, but on the floor to show piety, because that's the kind of guy he was. But he was rudely awoken by a sword hilt to the face. With a broken nose, he is dragged to his friend John, who was sitting on his bed. John told Nikepheros how disappointed he was in Nikepheros for not treating him better, and I'll quote John here, "I am more brave and vigorous than you. The armies of the enemy fear me. And there is no one now who can save you from my hands. Speak then, if you have any grounds of defence remaining against these charges." Nikepheros, with a broken nose and quite possibly a broken jaw, was unable to defend himself. John grabs his hair and hacks his head off. Nikepheros is killed.
Right.
So there you go, that's Nikepheros. He scored 16 for Vitius Maximus, 5 for Opprobrium Crazium, 8 for Successus Ultimus, 2.75 for Imago Facis, 0.275 for Tempo Completo, and okay score of 32.50.
Yeah.
Ranking him 25th. Tale of Two Halves. First half incredibly successful, and then everything goes to pot, and he becomes paranoid, and everyone hates him, and he accidentally kills a bunch of people.
Yeah.
But I think maybe we were a bit harsh on Nikepheros, to be honest.
Possibly.
So what are you thinking?
In regards to ranking completely?
Right, are we just putting Heraclius through?
Well, yeah, I thought it was a given.
Yeah. Are we just chucking Alexios IV out?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think our conversation then is, who is going through with Heraclius? Is it Theophilos? Is it Irene or is it Nikepheros II?
Part of me is really thinking Irene is a strong contender, more so than
Nikepheros? Interesting.
Because she's made a lot of good decisions, very clever decisions, but just overwhelmed. If not Irene, I would choose Theophilos over that.
Interesting. Right, okay. Nikepheros was a very good general.
Yeah.
But it all falls apart as soon as he's the emperor. And we're not doing generals, Totalis Rankium.
No. That's the problem.
He's got a lot of good stuff in his story. But I think I agree with you. If you look at the fact that everyone hated him as emperor,
It's not a shining
it's
endorsement.
really not. I'm happy for him not to go through, which is a shame because he's good. He's very good.
Yeah.
These three are very... it is hard to choose between these three, but he was the worst emperor out of all of them. And I know it's not who's best, who's worst.
Yeah.
It's who's most interesting. But apart from being a good general, he's not even that interesting. The story of his death is great. It is a good story.
Yeah.
But I'd argue John's side of it is more interesting because you get to see John sneaking through the palace to go and kill his friend.
Exactly.
And we've already covered John, and he didn't go through. I'd argue John was maybe slightly more interesting overall. Okay, right. I'm happy to say no to John. So, Theophilos or Irene?
Now, with these two, there is an obvious answer. And the obvious answer would probably do better.
Is your obvious answer Theophilos?
Yes.
Yeah.
However, if you're going to tell somebody about an emperor, Irene, first female emperor, very competent at the same time. So it's a bit of a, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Theophilos did a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. A lot of good stuff. He read books. He improved the life of the people living there.
He was a good emperor. And also, he had some fun stories, like killing all the people that killed his godfather. That was a nice little story, with the distance of time. He's got a cool last line, which is really good. And he generally makes the Empire a better place. And you've got the really cool story of him fighting in the storm and he gets circled. And there's a lot of good stuff in Theophilos.
Yeah.
Irene, first female emperor, always impressive. But not just that was just someone who was emperor for a bit. Makes some really good tactical decisions. I mean, the empire decides that actually, okay, we're going to put up with having a woman in charge, even though we're massively misogynistic, because she's just clearly better than her son.
Yeah, and she also reshaped the religious structure.
Getting rid of
the empire.
Iconoclasm is huge. And also, all the stuff, the fact that she almost married Charlemagne is amazingly interesting. Charlemagne wouldn't...
Yeah.
Okay, no, I'm going to rephrase that because what I was going to say is wrong. But it would have been harder, arguably, for Charlemagne to become the Holy Roman Emperor. Not that it was known as that at that time. Just the Roman Emperor. He would have found it harder to be crowned the Roman Emperor if it wasn't for Irene. That's not something Irene was trying to do, but it makes her reign more interesting. It means that we've got a Series 3. You could argue Series 3 only works if Irene exists. That is interesting. Ooh. But is it as good as... I mean, Alexios, you've got the story of the good General Manuel in the role. You've got John the Grammarian. You've got the story of the two different cups that I didn't recount today, but it's a story of going to Baghdad that was really cool. Just got interesting stuff. You've got the Golden Age of Baghdad in his role. I'm sorely tempted to put Irene through, but I think Theophilos has pipped it. Do you disagree?
I would agree with that. I think it was obvious Theophilos would be the second one.
Oh, you see, I wasn't, because when I'm writing the notes, I was thinking Nikepheros, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, and it was only when I started saying it out loud to you as the recap, I started going, but it really does fall apart, doesn't it? I think it's just that how well he does with all the fighting, and he takes Crete and the ships with the horses coming off, and It's close between these three, it really is. But no, I'm happy with Theophilos if you are. Should we say Theophilos?
I think it should
So
be.
we have Heraclius in
be.
first place, Theophilos in second. We have our two going through for the day. Really sorry to Irene and Nikepheros, and frankly Alexios IV. Get out.
Why are you
Yeah.
here?
So there we go. That is round 3 done. Interesting. Right, we've only got one more round to do. But that is for next time. Thank you very much for listening, everyone who is listening.
And thank you for downloading us where you do download us from. We love doing this, and thank you for supporting us if you do that as well.
Okay, and I suppose that's all we need to say for now. So, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Across the kitchen table. Sinon tu verras ça, on va s'en de la santé.
And this is BBC's coverage of the chariot races. Good evening, I'm Winston Featheringway. And I'm Cuthbert Mountbatten, and here we are on a mediocre day weather-wise. It's neither sunny nor raining today, a light drizzle. The overcast clouds are creating a poor mood. Yes, it's quite an oppressive feel to the atmosphere today, Winston, I must say. It matches my own mood. That is true. It's been a tough week this week, what with the wife dying and the boy being sent to the orphanage, but, what, step off the lip, you know. At least I have our friendship, and professional as ever, I will not be mentioning this. I think that is splendid news, and a few could say this would be a feel of foreboding with the atmosphere and the weather and the sad news. However, we'll carry on. Step upper lip intended. Yes. And as we look onto the racetrack, we can see only 3 horses this week. Pull yourself together, man. Terribly sorry. I love you. I hope you never leave. You're the only good thing about me. Oh, good God. Sorry. God, the emotions. God save our gracious. Yes, no, that's better. Right. Lie back and think of England. 3 horses. 3 horses, here we are. 3 horses. Only 3 horses, Winston. A shock. It is a shock. However, when we hear about Heraclius, he won the race yesterday. Yes, Heraclius turned off to the stadium 24 hours before, zipped around a few times, declared himself a winner. Shocking tactics, but it worked. Everyone has looked through the rule books. Turns out, not illegal. So Heraclius has won the race. And as we divert our eyes towards the grating at the side, where usually the spectators enter, we can see a man on a horse. And who is that, Cuthbert? Yes, that would be Alexios IV, who was supposed to be racing in this race, but I can't help but feel that he will not be. No, he is being advised to not even try by the stewards. You can hear the crowd. They are not happy with him even being this close to the race. They do not want him in here. No, and his cries of, "Why don't you love me?" are falling on deaf ears. Yes, and you can see there's the Doge just behind him. What? Very old, that man, but my goodness, you get the feeling you wouldn't want to get on his bad side. Absolutely not. So, that is no Alexios IV, as far as I can tell, and Heraclius has already won, so it's a 3-horse race. We have Irene. Irene taking the first slot. Looking fairly splendid on a lovely Palomino horse. It's a fantastic horse, this one. I'm very impressed. 1 horse, 1 carriage. Very streamlined, which is quite surprising because Irene seems to have her son, Constantine, with her. He might slow her down somewhat, but she's determined to keep him with her. Yes, he does appear to be crying and moaning quite a bit, but I'm sure she will do what she can to facilitate him there. Yes. And then in lane 2, we have Theophilos. Theophilos looking splendid on a wonderful Frisian horse, very tall, very strong, very powerful, very long legs. Yes, 1 horse, no chariot, riding bareback. It's very impressive. He looks like a fine specimen of man. His horse reminds me somewhat of Julia. No, man, stop. No, stop. Oh my God! Good God! Sorry. Yes, no, it's the teeth. You see. You need to stop. Cuthbert. Oh, good. I'm terribly sorry, Winston.
We are here on the King's BBC. Pull yourself together, man. Because in lane 3 we have Nikepheros, who is indeed not riding a horse at all.
No, Nikepheros II is on a catapult that is being drawn by horses, but he is not on the horse. He is on the catapult, not in the bucket of the catapult. I can't quite see what's in the bucket, though.
From this angle, they look a lot like hairy balls.
Heads, I believe. I can see clearly not hairy balls. I repeat, not hairy balls, but heads. It would appear to be heads, thank goodness it's heads. Oh, good God, it's heads. It's a whole bucket of heads, Winston.
You're getting very emotional since your breakup with your wife. Your crippling breakup with your wife.
Good God, no, it's fine. It's fine. It wasn't a breakup. It wasn't a breakup. She died tragically.
Well, she broke up.
It was a terrible train crash.
And on the same week, your son was sent to the orphanage.
Yes. Okay, so we have them. They're in the starting lineups. So just to repeat, we've got Irene with Constantine, Nikepheros on a catapult, and Theophilos bareback. And the man is dipping his arrow into the tar, and it's set alight. It's all about to start.
And he's raising into the air, and
we're off, we're racing, and they are going down, thundering down towards the first hairpin, and this is a spectacular start to our race today.
This is a spectacular start. We can see Theophilos has already taken the early lead. Irene is close behind, followed by Nikepheros at the back. He seems to be weighted down by the weight of the catapult and the heads.
The catapult is a bad move. I do not understand what he's doing. There must be some kind of stratagem here, but I can't see it. It's beyond me, it must be said.
And we can see, Irene is having a little bit of trouble with her son at the back. He seems to be complaining a lot and hitting her with a spoon.
Yes, Constantine, and I'm still not sure why he's here either. There's a lot of strange decisions today. He is dangling off the back of the chariot, putting his heels in the sand, which is, maybe he's trying to get sand into Nikepheros' eyes, but all it's doing is slowing down his chariot, and Irene looks furious.
She does look very unhappy indeed, while Theophilos does keep his lead on his impressive Frisian horse.
Oh, God, Julia.
Pull yourself together, man. Stop thinking about it. And your son that was sent to the orphanage. And Nikepheros is still being dragged behind because of the catapult. It does not have the turning speed necessary for this race.
No, that first hairpin was quite disastrous for Irene and Nikepheros. Theophilos pulls ahead even more. He's looking very happy with himself, and I must say something we didn't mention earlier. Theophilos dressed purely in blue, because this is not the first race Theophilos has run.
No, he ran in the past 5 years, and he's done very well with his team, the Blues. He mainly did well because they let him win, but he's the emperor,
Yes, every time he rode, everyone else shot themselves tragically with an arrow in the face. So he ended up winning.
They were unfortunate days and very bloody days that we shall move on from. And we can see young Constantine, Irene's son, is now gnawing at the seat.
Yes,
causing Irene a lot of distress.
Irene very, very annoyed. Oh, good God, Winston! Irene is turning on her son.
She's taken the spoon out of his hand and she's plucking out his eyes.
Oh my goodness!
I've never seen such a thing.
Oh, she is gouging those eyes like a woman possessed.
You can hear the popping.
Oh, it's terrible. The crowd are either aghast or loving every moment, depending on where you look. This is tragic. Constantine's lifeless body is just thrown from the chariot, and Irene is holding up the eyes to the crowd, and yes, she has eaten them. She has eaten the eyes. I think that cements her place in the history books as being a crazy one.
It is almost unrealistic, you could say. And Nikepheros is ridden over the body with a catapult. That is quite a shame.
And a head bounced out of the bucket of the catapult and has landed right next to the limp body of Constantine. A tragic scene there. Limp body next to decapitated head. They both stare at each other as if to say, how have our lives come to this? How has my life come to this? Lo. alone.
And moving on, we can see Theophilos is still at the front of the race. He's doing incredibly well still. I do believe he may be the runaway winner here.
Yes, I can't see how anyone's going to beat Theophilos. Of course, just to remind listeners, Theophilos is not actually in the lead because Heraclius has already won. Heraclius is in the crowd right now eating a hot dog.
And, oh, can you hear a bang at the side gate?
Yes, I believe that is Alexios IV still attempting to get into the hippodrome so he could race, but it's really not going to go... Oh, no, sorry, the banging is actually some supporters of Theophilos have got out and are just beating Alexios IV up.
Well, I can't blame them.
No, look...
Oh, my goodness! Over the fence! Who is that? Who is this new contender on a horse, heading towards Irene?
Is that Charlemagne?
He's not scheduled to win this race. What's that?
And Charlemagne has no business being here. I do not understand what's going on. Charlemagne?
He's a dirty Western emperor. He's not one of our fine Eastern folk.
Good God, Winston. This is terrible. Or glorious. I haven't decided which. I'm going to see how it lands. And Charlemagne he's caught up with Irene. The two of them are hitching their chariots together. And for some reason that defies everything I understand about physics, it has made their chariot twice as fast.
That is quite impressive. We can see Nikepheros. It appears to be he is arming his catapult.
Oh, Nikepheros, he's way behind now, so he needs to try something. He's obviously got a trick up his sleeve, and he is winching away at his catapult. I can only assume he's going to try and attack Irene and Charlemagne, who are catching up with Theophilos now. This is now getting very tense. I thought this was a done deal, but no. Theophilos is looking very nervous behind him at the power couple that is Irene and Charlemagne.
They are charging ahead, and as the catapult is winched down, how many heads would you estimate are in that basket?
I'm not good with numbers, but it's going to be somewhere between 17 and 40,000.
That is quite a big bucket.
A lot of hairy balls. I mean, heads. Definitely heads. It's still winching, and there's a lot of tension in that rope now.
He is going to have quite the range.
But that doesn't matter, because everyone is watching. Theophilos and Irene/Charlemagne, they are now neck and neck. And Theophilos, I don't think, has an answer for the power couple that is Irene and Charlemagne.
I believe you're right. Oh my goodness, another horse and another rider has entered the stadium.
Who is this? Oh my goodness, it is a mirror image of Theophilos. Get Theophilos, put him in a mirror, and then change all the dark colours to light colours so it's a complete opposite. It's Theophobos.
He's riding right up to Theophilos, and he is caught up, he has attached his chariot, and they have doubled speed.
Again, we do not understand the physics here, but it would appear that if you put two chariots together, they go twice the speed. So there we go, and now we really have a race on, because it looked like Irene/Charlemagne was going to just get ahead, but no, they're neck and neck, and they have roughly the same speed. I can't call it. I cannot call this at all. Theophilos and Theophobos are high-fiving each other, high-fiving galore. Charlemagne and Irene are... Oh.
They appear to be falling out.
No, they're looking over some kind of document. I'm not sure what it is. I think it may be some kind of religious text. They're not entirely sure. And Charlemagne leaves. Charlemagne has jumped off the top, somersaulted onto a different horse, and the horse has taken flight. And flown out of the stadium. Well, Charlemagne, what a guy. We can only hope that we come across him again in the future. But no, that leaves Irene on her own at a time where she would not want to be.
And because the second chariot has disengaged from the first chariot, she is, against all physics, slowing down.
Yes, well, there we go. So it would appear that Theophilos and Theophobos are definitely going to win. It's the last lap. They go around the last hairpin. It's all in the bag now. And yes, and they're approaching the finish line. And yes, there we go. Theophilos chops off Theophobos' head and crosses the finish line, claiming the victory all for himself.
That is quite an impressive feat, and obviously the lack of head does lessen the weight, which does increase the speed. That is physics.
Yes, definitely. But of course, we still need to know who's coming in next, and Irene has slowed down quite a lot, and Nikepheros could catch up here.
It is possible. He is still
winching away.
He's still winching away. However, It looks like it's almost at full potential.
And this is it. Winston, he's going to do it. His hand goes towards the trigger. We've all been waiting for this moment. He's obviously got a trick up his sleeve, and yes, he pulls the trigger.
He's released the head. He's released.
Heads everywhere.
They are flying all over the place.
Flying all over the place, and
they are going into the audience. They're going to...
God, it's hit. It's hit our booth. It's hit our heads everywhere. Heads everywhere. Oh my God. Look, there one landed right next to me. Quite the impact that it made. Winston. Oh God, Winston. You've got a head on your head, Winston. Winston, are you okay, Winston? Winston, have you been head-footed? Oh God, Winston. Tragic scenes here, ladies and gentlemen. Not only is poor Julia gone and the boy in an orphanage, but Winston has passed his best. He's been head-butted to death. I can only assume Winston's dead, ladies and gentlemen. It's very hard to be alive when your head has been replaced with another decapitated head. And he just lies there. He lies alone. And I'm now alone. No friends. Cold, dark, the drizzle pours down upon the booth. Heraclius wins. Theophilos II. And myself, a distant blast. This has been the Chariot Races for the BBC. Good evening.